idea behind the series is that I'm going to take acts that have this label that implies dated, crappy, insignificant music, and then explain how they were actually legitimate artists. And if that's my mission, well, oh boy, we got a doozy today. Dexy's Midnight Runners are just about the theoretically perfect ideal of the one-hit wonder band. I mean, they got everything you'd want. One beloved, well-remembered hit single, an image-defining music video, a terrible name, and best of all, they're a British new wave band from the 80s. Like, believe me, I could keep the series going for like 10 years just on 80s new wave bands alone. Now, to be fair, Come On Eileen isn't exactly a ridiculous novelty song, and I did know they had some level of critical acclaim. Even so, I was not prepared for how much love and respect there is for Dexys. Like, for example, this published biography you can buy on Amazon, or this poll in a British newspaper where average music fans argue passionately about which was the best of their 3 albums, all of which represented a radical shift in tone and image as Dexys evolved. What I'm saying is, the dorks bouncing around in blue jumpers are probably about the most legit band I will ever cover on this series, no joke. Now, I think I'm a pretty informed guy as far as music goes, but to understand this band, I had to look up and understand all their influences and musical references. I mean, damn guys, I had a serious music nerdery upgrade doing this episode. Get ready to take notes, because we're about to get educational up in here. Okay, let's answer everyone's first question. Who the hell is Dexy? What the hell kind of name is Dexy anyway? Is that guy Dexy? The answer is, no one is Dexy. Turns out in England, Dexy was the street name for amphetamines, which probably makes Midnight Runners a reference to junkies running around high on speed. That's right, their name basically means meth heads. Yes, dexedrine was a popular drug in the Northern Soul scene. The hell is that? Okay. Apparently, in the north of England around the late 60s and 70s, the kids basically went nuts over dancing to these obscure American soul records that were never hits anywhere. I'm talking about songs that came out like a decade earlier from bands and singers that neither you nor I have ever heard of, but for some reason they were a big damn deal in Manchester and Lancashire and Stoneham-on-Mersey or wherever. Which brings us to this one kid from Birmingham with Irish parents named Kevin Rowland. Rowland had been in the punk scene for a while in Birmingham, got sick of that, decided he wanted to get a bunch of people together and try to do this soul thing. Also, he was kind of a serious control freak. He made the band totally straight edge, which, yeah, I know the name, I don't get it either. And he also made them all wear the same outfit. Yes, that's right, he made them all dress like New York City dock workers. They could have been contenders. You should have been looking out for them, Charlie. And here's the thing, they were a success, in England at least, almost immediately. And who could be surprised? After all, who better to emulate this genre of music than a guy who sounded like this? Evidently in the UK, this incomprehensible yelp was a perfectly acceptable form of soul singing because Dexys had a #1 single before they even had a finished album. This song is called Gino, and in the UK this is their other big hit. Now they do have other minor hits too, but Dexys is kind of a 2-hit wonder over there. This song is a tribute to the singer Gino Washington, and again, Dexys' Midnight Runners were inspired by really obscure soul records that were only popular in the UK well after the fact, so I've never even heard of this guy Gino, but from what I can tell he seems like a pretty cool guy. Yeah, I guess this stuff was a little too British to cross over here. Remember, MTV didn't even exist yet. Personally, I prefer most of the rest of that album over Gino. As far as I can tell, they've got a lot in common with the British ska scene of that time, like Madness and Specials. 1980 was a much better year for music in England than America, I'll tell you that much.
Do that to me one more time. Once is never enough.
Well, now that they were already the next big thing in the UK, Rowland decided to mix things up for the second album. Another wardrobe change, in this case a bunch of scarves and blue overalls, and it's kind of a weird combination of gypsy, Dust Bowl farmer, and who knows what the f***. They put out their second album, Tu Rye, in 1982, and it was an eclectic mix of soul music and Celtic folk. And and there were more fiddles and less horns now, and the entire horn section quit in protest, although they still did work on the album. Honestly, it's really good, and it ends with a mammoth showstopper of an album closer. Let's take a look at that, shall we?
Now, with your kind indulgence, I'll play Those Endearing Young Charms.
Sorry, I just can't hear the intro to the song without expecting Daffy Duck to blow up. Ha, but I digress. This was obviously one of the most played songs of 1983, and to this day is still humongous. One of the most beloved songs of the decade. Maybe not quite Jesse's Girl or Don't Stop Believin' level, but really high up there. It not only brought them their second #1 hit in the UK, it broke them into America and wrestled the top spot away from Michael Jackson for a week. And after all, who could dislike a song with such amazing lyrics as this? Okay, the lyrics are not why this song got so big. In fact, the song has been so long a staple of the big 80s marathons that you kind of forget how little it sounds like any of its contemporaries. The British folk influences, the complete lack of synthesizers, Kevin Rowland's weird, incomprehensible squawk. And despite that, it was huge. It's just a wonderfully catchy, powerfully energetic song. It's got a great hook, some killer key changes, and a big, crowd-pleasing outro.
Come on, Eileen to the right. Come on, Eileen to the right.
Really, I totally get why it got so big. And yet, I don't think I ever really liked this song myself until I actually found out what it was about. I've only ever been able to make out the first line and little bits of the chorus. Until I wrote this episode, I had no idea who Eileen is or why she should come on. Somehow, "Tu Lai Tu Rai" makes as much sense as anything else in this song. What is he saying here? And who the hell is Johnny Ray, who I do recognize from another 80s song, but not much else? Well, let me answer this now. If you want to know why she's supposed to come on, here it is. Johnny Ray is a crooner from the early 50s, and Kevin Rowland is listening to him and imagining how exciting he must have sounded to his parents in those bright, shining, happy days after the end of the war, and why shouldn't we be able to feel like that, damn it? So come on, Eileen, let's blow this crumb-bum little town full of beaten down, dead-eyed people and go live a life of romance and adventure. Yes, Come On Eileen is the British-Irish folk version of Born to Run. It also helps if you know how shitty England's economy was in 1982, especially in Dexy's hometown of Birmingham, so you'd think they'd only make depressing music, but instead Come On Eileen it's full of joy and hope. This song just makes people feel glad to be alive. Now let's talk about how they screwed it up. Okay, the next single after Eileen was a cover of Van Morrison's Jackie Wilson Said. It's a pretty fitting choice for a cover. Long before Kevin Rowland thought of it, Van Morrison had been mixing soul music and Celtic folk with completely unintelligible vocals for years. Actually, wow, are they related? The resemblance is uncanny. The song was even about one of Dexy's favorite subjects, a great R&B singer from decades earlier who you should totally listen to. Honestly, it's kind of too perfect. It was another hit for them in the UK, not here though. Honestly, I don't know why this wasn't a hit in America, but if I had to guess, maybe this cover was just too obvious, like Tim Burton making his own version of Alice in Wonderland too obvious. But that's not the failed follow-up I wanted to talk about here. The third album brought another major wardrobe change, this one very much the worst. And Christ, even Spandau Ballet had more style than that. But that wasn't the problem. The problem is that Dexys came up with a difficult album. with songs ranging from 5 to 12 minutes long, and Rowland refused to release a single because it had to be understood as an album statement. You know, like he was fronting Pink Floyd or something. It was ambitious, is what I'm saying. And as it turns out, Don't Stand Me Down is sort of their Pinkerton. By that I mean everyone who's heard this album absolutely loves it. Now. But at the time, critics hated it, and the public refused to touch it. Dexy's Midnight Runners was not supposed to be making artsy albums with 12-minute songs. The record label forced him to release a single eventually, but at that point the record had already tanked. And yet nowadays people call it a masterpiece. My copy of the Mojo Collection Greatest Albums of All Time calls this the most challenging and passionate work of Rowland's tempestuous career. Challenging definitely. I just don't think the world was ready to hear Kevin Rowland rambling for 7 minutes over the beat to Werewolves of London.
It occurred to me that switch on the radio, you know, just wanted to hear some music. Sure, yeah. While turning it on, it was Radio 1's Hit Jenkins in the air.
I guess it's a better use of Werewolves of London than what Kid Rock did.
It was 1989, my thoughts were short, my hair was long. Caught somewhere between a boy and man. La, la, oh, 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 oh.
Honestly, I don't think I get this album. It's a little over my head, I guess. But most people nowadays say it's an underrated 5-star classic, so that's nice. Didn't do the band much good at the time, though. When the album flopped, the band broke up and went their separate ways. And that's pretty much why you don't know anything else about them except their ridiculous name. Dexys broke up in 1986. Kevin Rowland's story for the next 15 years or so was a mess of failed solo albums, drug addiction, and cross-dressing.
To me, are sweet as roses in the morning, and you to me are soft as summer rain at dawn. In love we share.
I guess that's one way to spice up a boring covers album. Did I mention drugs? After trying and failing to reunite for many, many years, Dexys finally put out another album in 2012, and it actually got decent reviews, and they're still going now, so don't feel too bad for them. Yes. The answer to that is yes. I hope I made that clear.
Come on, baby.
They were just such a strikingly different band from much of the rest of the 80s. I dare say that the entire decade would have been a lot different, and probably for the better if Dexys had managed to notch a few more hits in this country. Most 80s music was so slick and polished, and Dexys were defiantly unslick, even as they wrote some intensely catchy music. Now I fully recognize that Come On Eileen is basically just a silly, feel-good 80s sing-along. But goddamn, it's a good one. So, Tula Rulae. We're gonna hum this tune forever.